Hello, welcome to Women in Weed Virtual Round Table with all of these badass canna ladies. Today we are going to dedicate this to Mikhail Santil, a published author, dear friend of Melissa. Melissa, if you would like to just tell us a little bit about this woman. She recently passed last night, you said?
Yeah, so Mikhail. First things first, we couldn't say enough about her. She passed away, unfortunately, last night from a battle with breast cancer. She was a warrior survivor. She used cannabis to help treat her condition, amongst other things. It helped her a great deal, but it never broke her spirit, her illness. She was a poet and author. She was a tour guide. She was a fierce advocate for the community, for holistic medicine. She would encourage folks to go back to her island of Haiti or Jamaica or wherever she loved and soak in the ocean and pray under the moonlight. And she was just that kind of girl. And she really believed in holistic healing. And she was just a person that you could not bottle up. You can't put her into words. Her energy is indescribable. So I just thought it was important, as we all came together as women today, to dedicate this to her and to take a piece of her energy with us as we move forward. And certainly remember that when we've all lost people in this cannabis struggle, it's part of our frustration that we'll talk about. And losing her last night has only put a fire under my ass to make sure that we do this and we do this right. And we all come together. People, when they transition, she wanted us to know, you don't leave in the flesh. You just leave the flesh. You don't leave in spirit. So she'll be gone from the flesh, but not forgotten. And we'll find a way to motivate and inspire. And this whole nursing gig I'm doing now is dedicated to her. This show is dedicated to her. A lot of stuff we're going to do from here on out is dedicated to her. So thank you for that, for letting us do that.
Thank you. So this is going out to her, and today we're gonna discuss what it's like being a woman in the cannabis space, the journey of before legalization, the struggles post legalization, times that we felt empowered as a woman, times that we were really frustrated to be a woman in this space, and things that we really want to see happen as this industry evolves, and we move towards getting rid of prohibition, because that's really the goal here. So Lori, why don't we start with you? Tell us about yourself, and we'll go from there.
I don't know where you want me to start when you talk about myself, but I will say that my cannabis journey started when I left a big law firm. And so I would say that experience in big law firm was where I actually felt the most challenged with being a woman and being with my race. And I think it all fell on me. I still had a lot of self-acceptance to do. And so it was reflected in my environment. And so I didn't have the confidence that I have now. It took years. So I think that my journey was more so about me finding myself, and being a woman was just a tool used by spirit to give me the lessons that I needed. Just like my race was something that was used to teach me that I don't need anybody to love me but myself. You feel me? So I don't really think that it was it's more like a tool that was used. And I also realized in going inwards and finding myself that being a woman is one of the most powerful things that you could be. Like when you really tap into the feminine energy, it doesn't matter if you're a man or woman. I'm talking about energy that is in both a male body and a female body. When you tap into that creative, chaotic, infinite potentiality, no one can tell you who and what to be. And so I think that being in this industry, at first I was shy, believe it or not. I was scared and even afraid to speak my truth, because I really was thinking that the world would view me being a woman a particular way, me being Black a particular way, coming from Haiti a particular way. But then when I tapped in and realized the value of who I am, I realized it's like the most beautiful note in the symphony. And as is every woman here, So that's kind of where I'm at right now in this space. In terms of mind, spirit, body.
I'll meet myself here. So what are things that you'd like to see happen in now that we've reached legalization? What do you think that this industry should be doing for not just women but for everyone?
I think that for me the biggest problem is that the system is fucked because the minds of the individuals within it are fucked. So when people are asking me, what do I do? It's like moving shit around. You're still dealing with shit. People are still walking around with the plant, still with stigmas in their minds about who uses it. People still have stigma about who's in jail, who I call the ancestors, because but for the mass number of them in jail right now, a lot of those statistics is what we use to show the inhumane way that we, the American people, have treated Americans in this country. Okay, I lost my train of thought. I got too empowered. Sometimes the passion will make you forget things. What was the question?
What do you want to see happen in this industry?
What I want to see is the stigma. I want people to really stop thinking with their logic only, in the logic rooted in money, and start seeing people, and start seeing that this is an industry. Out of everything, this industry belongs to those in jail. Out of everything, this industry belongs to those whose neighborhoods have been destroyed by it. I didn't grow up here. I grew up in Port-au-Prince, Haiti. And I can even say it belongs to them, okay? Because where I grew up, my president was black, my doctors were black, everybody was black. Everybody successful looked like me. I did not have to battle a system that everything within it didn't look like me. So I recognize my privilege. And so when I stand here as an ally, saying that these, my brothers and sisters in America, were played by this system. And I need people to do better. And what by better you need to change your minds and your hearts. Stop seeing people as criminals, okay? And stop thinking that and then also do some research. When you empower yourself with knowing that this plant is actually healthy, this plant is not demonic, okay? When you empower yourself that way, it starts to reduce the stigma. So I think it's all about going inwards, educate, empower yourself so you can learn to love people better, so that when you step into the industry, you can make decisions out of love and oneness and unity instead of fear, scarcity, and greed. I don't know. It's 11 o'clock and Big Mama's already fired up. I'm sorry.
Love it.
I could not agree more with you. This is spot on. And this is one of my favorite things about you, is that you just have this raw, authentic, confident humility about you. So I thank you for sharing that, and keep that energy, keep that passion. It's what makes you you. So thank you.
I tell people, when your value is rooted in your capacity to love and serve, you can't sell out and you can't be bought. And that's what you feel about me. When you feel that authenticity, you can't buy me, because I get confident by my ability to serve people. And the more I can love you, the more I feel like emboldened.
I love it. Thank you. Awesome. So we'll have Melissa, if you would like to just kind of follow Lori's lead and
Yeah, follow Lori's lead. I'm happy to do that. I'll be my leader any day. I'm not good at talking about myself. We can blah, 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 all the steps all the way along. But I just come from a place where I've always been outspoken about cannabis. You can ask anybody that knows me. I was rolling around a little Ford Escort with a sunflower on my antenna, talking about this stuff should have been legal back in '95. So I've worked in different, decriminalization, voters to change rights, to get folks that were disenfranchised or prisoners to get their right to vote back, decrease the recidivism rates, just work in the community to change things. I worked in HIV counseling, all these different, spectrums, and I found myself in cannabis because of ladies like all of you, because you guys understood, like you said, that nurturing capacity, the fire, the need to, when I ran into Beth, the first day I ran into Beth, she was working for Women's Grow in Boston, and I just jumped behind. I didn't even know her. Just jumped behind the table, and that's how we met. She was talking to a guy. I love you so much. She needed a sentence, and we just, that's what we do as women. So that's who I try to be in this space. I try to be an advocate, an educator. I try to be transparent. I try to be real with people. I'm very outspoken. Might look like sometimes I maybe have a little chip on my shoulder, but I'm telling my story because I want people to know it's been a struggle. It's real. You know what I'm saying? Like, I try to tell everybody what's going on every moment, everywhere we're going, what we're doing, what I'm doing. I helped open and run a dispensary and a medical dispensary, a compassion center. And I watched a lot of white men in suits get rich. And I realized that I couldn't be part of other people's struggle to make them rich. When we built this community, it was supposed to be for a purpose. And I felt like our purpose has been forgotten. And I struggle to find my purpose now in the industry still, because of all of that red tape. So I'll go to different countries first, you know what I mean, and help start festivals there. Sometimes before I feel comfortable in our own space. So as women, I feel like it's important that we've always come together. We've always felt empowered. We've always done what we had to do to make sure that they know we're here, Maggie. That's what I've always respected about you. Props to you for that. You have always exposed and said it like it is. And I've always had mad respect from the moment I met you. That's where I feel like I connected with all you ladies, that I could be myself, right? That I could be brutally honest or unapologetic or transparent or have a bad day or not care about money. I could leave that job and walk away. I left the dispensary because of the conglomerate, and I couldn't be a part of it. He couldn't buy me like, any of us. And going back to nursing school, that's where I'm at now in life. So it's about what am I into? Nothing. I don't have a life. This quarantine really hasn't affected me much. So I'm just back in nursing school, doing my thing, trying to hone in on really what happens inside the body and hopefully take this back to our roots, our true, preventative health, preventative measures, listening to the patient, altruistic measures, meeting them where they're at, education. This stuff is not rocket science. So just, treating the body, treating the patient, treating the person, and using cannabis as one of the herbs that really tends to be a miracle for all of us. So I'm excited for what the future holds for us. And I thank you all for sharing this time. Kebra, I see you over there. Emily doing all the edible stuff. I shout all you. I'm so empowered by you all. There's been days I think we've all wanted to walk away from this thing. I have to keep that real too, right? So no matter what dispensary or what dollar signs we walk away from, let it be clear, like we're not walking away from this movement. It's ours, and we'll make sure it's done right.
Love it. So what is there one thing that you really want to see done, as we progress in this industry? We've all kind of seen the disappointment pouring our heart and souls with the red tape, with the greed. So if there's anything that you could see change, what would that be?
I want to see the people that are locked up go home to their families. I want to see the people that did the real work get the jobs. And I'm not talking about, I want the position with this or that. Like, I'm talking about the people whose hearts are in it, who know how to grow the medicine, who put that love, that extra ingredient, their soul and their life that has been put into this. Those are the people that should be running the show. So I want to see those things change. I want to see true education. I want to see medical studies. I want to see, I want to see descheduling. I don't want to see rescheduling. I want to see where this education, where Elevate, where we can go and, all this work that we've done pays off in a way that's not monetary, but changes our society. That's what I want to see.
Preach. Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you.
Awesome. So we have Beth Waterfall.
Hey, guys.
Tell us about yourself and your journey.
Well, first, just want to say thank you, Maggie, and thanks to MassCann's for putting this together. I know how much learning about marijuana changed my life. So to be able to be a part of any sort of educational effort, that's, it's really paying it forward for me. So thank you for inviting me to be here today. Kind of like Lori, I didn't come from a background of advocacy. I also worked at law firms. But I used cannabis since I was a young teenager, but I was always so stigmatized about it. Really ashamed that I used it. But I knew somewhere inside that it wasn't really as bad as I was being told it was, because I didn't become a heroin addict, as I was told that I would become. But I used it to manage pain, for headaches, for anxiety. And I just, it really took me having this moment in my career. I was working as a marketing director in an accounting firm. And if you're any sort of creative person in marketing, accounting really isn't a creative environment. There's only so much you can do with new regulations and tax codes and stuff like that. But certainly, good jobs got me to a good place financially, and, some great skills that I was really able to transfer into cannabis. So really what I've done is use the same types of skills that I had used when I was working with executives in law firms and accounting firms, financial services. And so I knew when I got into the cannabis industry, I needed to learn, and I needed to just, if I wanted people to work with me and to be able to move my marketing business into cannabis, people need to know who I was. So that meant going out to events, trying to get speaking engagements, doing writing, the same types of things that I was doing when I was coaching the lawyers and accountants and things like that. So it worked. And so I really do believe that there's a place for people that do have a background in non-cannabis to bring their skills and bring their passion to this industry to help advance it in a responsible way. And for me, really, the big moment was going to a cannabis convention, the New England Cannabis Convention in September 2015. And I saw Chanel Lindsay, I saw Melissa Bouchard, Holly Alberti, Ellen Brown. And I had gone into that event thinking that it was going to be kind of, I'll go in there with my clean professional skills and I'll help all these little companies become more mature and more sophisticated. And it was incredibly humbling for me because I basically put my business on hold to become an advocate, to contribute my skills that I had in marketing, in business development, public relations. Really, all those things are about changing perception. So if I could change a business's perception about which accounting firm they were going to use, I could apply those same types of skills to convincing those types of peers in those professional and corporate types of environments to accept cannabis, that it wasn't this outside fringe type of strange people used it. I used it, and the people that I worked with, I know used it. So the changes I'd like to see to this day are that those people, kind of like what Lori was saying, the stigma is very, very real. And, I have people in that old life, that professional background who talk to me about their cannabis use and tell me how awesome it is that I've done all this advocacy work, but they're still not coming out about it. They're still not going to like my Facebook post. They're still not going to support because they still carry that stigma. So the big thing and the thing that keeps motivating me to educate and help to open doors, we want people to get jobs, but at the end of the day, jobs and businesses cannot exist without an informed public, without the moms, the dads, the grandmas, just at least understanding some facts about it. So that's what I try to do through Elevate and through the clients that I choose to work with, really to break stigma and move the industry forward, using those skills that I developed in my non-cannabis world. So my life has completely changed because of cannabis, and I'm incredibly grateful to be here. And I think, one of the big responsibilities that I carry with me is that I'm a 40-year-old woman who does not have children. So 5 years ago, when I started doing networking events for women in cannabis, I would have women come up to me and say that they were very nervous to even be there. They were nervous to talk to people about their use because they had children. Maybe they were living in housing or something like that. And it was very real that they couldn't put themselves out there the way that I could. So I took that on as a responsibility and really privileged. So I put myself out there on behalf of women as best as I can. And again, it's breaking down those doors so women can be the business owners and contribute their skills that they have without that layer of horrible stigma. Because it's not as easy as it was for me as a non-mother to overcome that.
Can I ask a question on that?
You sure can.
Because I remember that year was a really pivotal year for all of us. And I'm just curious. So in meeting you, for me, coming from the advocate perspective, it was like, okay, great. Because that whole, teach one, reach 10 approach, right? Yep. And I saw in you that fire and I was like, great, here we have this platform. We're going to be able to reach the others. So my question, what's the conversion rate? What do you think we got that are actually willing to come out of the closet?
Oh my God, the conversion rate.
Success rate.
I wish I had that number, but I really think we can look back, maybe not accounting the numbers, but some of the events we've been able to do, years of knocking down at the Worcester Business Journal publisher, cannabis is real, business is coming. We should be talking about this. This should be covered as normal business. And sure enough, a few years later, he contacts me and says, okay, I was wrong. You were right. Let's do an event. Now we've done 2. The Cape and Plymouth Business Journal, those are people who maybe thought about cannabis a little bit as an opportunity to make some money, or they could sell some of their real estate maybe someday down the line, but not really looking at it as a global cultural change. And all the ways that that legalization would affect businesses that exist that today really have nothing to do with cannabis. There's opportunity and stigma that exists everywhere. So, I mean, I can't put a number on that conversion, but I know my parents, I've changed them. So that's huge. Yeah. I wish I had that number.
Well, we'll make it our mission to get those that are in it just because they're real estate money or they're this. That's our next mission, I think, is to make sure they're in it for the right reasons. Because that's they're yes, because, right? And we don't want them to have the ulterior motives. We want them to do it because.
Yeah, and I really think that
we shouldn't stigmatize it.
Yeah, and it's ignorance, and not necessarily willful ignorance. It's that, you know, the stigma and basically prohibition and making cannabis illegal was an incredibly effective public relations campaign over 80 years. And when you lived in that shadow of being told for decades and decades, this is a very terrible type of thing that will turn people into demons and animals.
Yeah,
it's hard to just flip that switch. So I think, you know, people being positive examples and putting the education out, it chips away at it. And I've absolutely seen people change. But
I am done turning down those fancy bourbon dinners and whatever they want to drinks to pour because I can't smoke my weed. I'm just done with all that. Just
We're getting there. We're getting there, girl.
Thank you, Beth.
Thank you, Meg.
Yes, I love hearing those stories, converting people. That's what it's about. So we have Kara Crab Burnham. You were the woman that got me involved in all of this over 5 years ago. Got me involved in MassCan's. You have been pre-legalization, post-legalization. You've taken on Brigham and Women's as a mother.
I feel like you're making me sound old.
You're very young too. You're so young. You're so young, and you've gotten all this accomplished already. Tell us.
we are seasoned, not old.
Actually, I think Melissa is one of the first women in the space that I recognized as someone, you know, that I should look up to many moons ago. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Well, I wanted all those fancy little thingies you wore around your neck.
Oh my God, my lanyard! It's here. It's in one of these boxes.
She has a collection. I actually I kept like 4. I don't know why people keep them in such a thing.
I have an entire box of lanyards and name tags and speaker badges. I've never gotten rid of one of them.
Someday they'll be worth some money, but you're sweet. But anyway, I always looked up to you, so cut it.
I love you.
We love you.
No, I love you guys. It was weird when I was in retail, I was in the high fashion stuff. So when the economy crashed in 2008, right after decrim, I ended up going back to college, and I was at the Freedom Rally. It must have been 2008. And somebody called my name and said, "Hey, are you a student?" I had just re-enrolled in college. I was going to be a 24-year-old freshman. And so they said, you know, they're starting Students for Sensible Drug Policy chapters. And that's how I got started. I was one of the chapter founders for Emerson SSDP back in the day. And I made very good friends with one of the directors at the time over at MassCann's, Keith Saunders, who did the Boston Pot Report, which I got involved in. I was co-hosting that for about 1.5 years. That was really fun. That was back in the day. That was when we all like sat at our mics doing radio, like getting so high. We taste tested for like 4 hours every Friday. I woke up once at like 8 o'clock at night on my kitchen floor, like super comfy. Like I'd taken my puffy coat and like I was home safe. Like
You made it.
I miss those days, those fun days of Prohibition. And we would just talk about those fun days of Prohibition. We would just talk about cannabis education, and I learned so much in that time with him. He has a PhD in reform and activism. So sitting there with Keith for all that time, just learning and absorbing and learning the history of MassCann's, the history of Normal, and then like the network that expanded from that. Going into becoming a part of MassCann's, becoming a director back in 2009 or 2010, and I wasn't even at that meeting when I got elected to be a director, because I was in DC with SSDP lobbying Congress. So that was
you were on the floor with the jacket.
Those years were like wild, like 2008, I guess, to like 2012. They were like wild with the stuff that was going on, and then it sort of slowed down. Got into the MassCann's groove for a couple of years. We had the Normal Women's Alliance. Who here remembers that? made pot. I found a bunch of pot holders the other day. Do you remember those little like? We made
Do you remember the
tables.
quilt? Do you remember the quilt? And then the quilt got stolen from that other organization?
No, but I actually found I have a Paula. Do you know Paula? He made this for us once upon a time. I am wearing pants.
I'm not. I'm totally not. I swear.
I knew this was gonna be fun. I knew it.
So like, oh yeah, like this is, oh, there's Emily's name tag.
Oh,
So yeah, I mean, we did that. That was super fun. And then in 2014, I was working with Mickey, rest in peace, Mickey Martin, and we opened the Northeastern Institute of Cannabis in Natick. And Maggie was one of our first students, and that's how I met Kibra. Emily came to the program, and then Beth took a couple classes, I think, and it was.
I was supposed to teach, but we decided to open the dispensary instead.
That's right. That's right. You were there for planning stages.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, the ups and downs of running a cannabis business. Whew, that was fun.
Can we talk about that for a minute?
I miss NIC so much. I miss Mickey. I know. I never thought I'd say that, but
It seemed so
I
stressful.
miss Mickey.
I knew. I told you would. By the way, that's where this came from. By the way, when you were talking about that, this says like, if you're not willing to do 10 years in prison for weed, get the fuck out of my office. Thanks,
I miss
management.
the memes.
This was
I
on
miss
my
them.
wall at dispensary, mind you. I at least made sure of that. You know what I mean? Like, these are our roots because it frustrated me watching all these
I
people
found,
walk out the back door.
I found the Boston Globe where there's a big picture of him in the Boston Globe. I found that when I was unpacking, just moved into this house.
So back to you though, let's talk about your experience starting that business and how you beast mode. You went from, being a stoner girl at the rally to, taking this stuff head on.
Okay. Okay, first of all, what is stoner girl at the rally considering I was the only one wearing a blazer?
I mean,
You remember back 2009, 2010, up until 2015, I wore a blazer to every freedom rally.
All right.
Stoner girls wear blazers too.
I was like,
That
I
was
remember
my
being
job.
Claire?
from
I miss
13
my
to
blazers.
21st. Girls like you in blazers to the green side. You know what I'm saying? That was my job.
I'm such a bad stoner girl. I still can't roll a joint properly. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. I know.
Next.
I know. It's horrible.
Yeah.
It's like
Fired. The only thing it was good
confessing
for.
my sins.
Fired.
No, I loved it. It was so much work, honestly, setting that place up.
All right.
It was, we
No,
had,
you're not allowed to
the
talk
first
anymore.
time,
No, wait. You
what?
got a pack of papers. I'm going to mail you a pack of papers. You got some weed, right? No, I'm dead serious.
I know, it's
30
Stack
papers.
I have a
Break it up.
roller.
This is
I use the
unacceptable.
roller.
Nope. Get a pack of papers.
Yeah, I think
Weed.
all those
You're
people.
going to break it up. You're going to
No,
rip it
no,
apart.
I
You're gonna
have-
use the same weed.
I
Right.
have a gallon bag of paper. I literally have a
Everyone
Ziploc gallon
listening,
bag full of paper, rolling papers.
It'll
because I
eventually
don't-
turn into a log
I
and
am
it'll roll
so
itself.
proficient in rolling.
All right, we need one at a time, guys. One at a time. Hold on.
All right, come on. All right. Who's sorry? All right, go.
Kara, Brigham and Women's and NIC. You get.
We had leaf.
Yes,
At NIC, we had a women's group. Oh my God, that was fun. And we did
That was good.
the bag. We did the
Hygiene
hygiene collection bags. We ended up getting 60 bags over
We
to
did.
Rosie's place. That was fun. I was ginormously pregnant, and we were packing the bags.
Aw.
No, putting that place together in the beginning. I mean, it was 7 days a week. It was absolutely nonstop.
12.
But it was so rewarding. I mean, I think there were, in the end, 600 people had come through some part of the program. There was over 400 tested graduates, and my test was no joke. Like, everybody failed the test the first time. Like, I wanted it to be hard because I wanted people to take their job seriously when they got one. Like, I didn't want anybody to think it was going to be easy going into this industry. It's not. And there's so many graduates from the school who are doing amazing things, 3 of which are here. So
I want to hear more about Brigham and Women's though. Like, people
that
don't
I had a
really
baby.
know that you changed a hospital policy. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's that. I did that. Well, I was mad. Okay. In all fairness, like, you have
I was
privilege,
mad.
you should use it where you can to the betterment of everyone. And when I was pregnant and I was high risk, I'd been in the neurology department. I have a non-epileptic seizure disorder. And I was going through Brigham and Women, and all my doctors were there. My female doctor, my neurologist, my dermatologist, like everyone was there. So when I decided to get pregnant, it was like 6 months of trying medications to get me off of the teratogenic medication I was on for my seizures. And so, teratogenic.
Yeah. For those that don't know what that means, it could have killed a kid. You know what I'm saying? She was trying to be a good mom.
Mm-hmm. It causes spina bifida. So anyway, so we're doing this for 6 months, and we finally get me onto an anticonvulsant that is for epileptic patients. I don't have epilepsy, but this is what they put me on because it's the only thing that was safe enough. And I said, well, I'm going to have to continue to use marijuana because I need something to help regulate my moods and my hormones. I'm about to be pregnant, and we know that hormones are a trigger for seizures. And the doctors are like, all right, do what you got to do. So I get into the OBGYN. She's like, okay, I totally understand what you're doing. It makes sense. Like, you need this. But, we have to go through these procedures because hospital policy. I continually checked your blood. There's no cocaine. There's no alcohol. There's no tobacco. There's nothing in your system. That would lead us to believe that you're doing other drugs. And we understand that you have a medical marijuana recommendation, blah, blah, blah. But we have to call the social services at the hospital. So I was like, why? It is what it is. So social services sets up an appointment. I got to go talk to them. And then they're going, well, we have to report this to DCF. We're going to Department of Children and Families. We have to file a 51A form for any parent who's found with any pregnant woman. What?
Oh, you froze. There you are.
Okay, my bad. So the 51A form is any woman that has marijuana in her system when a baby is born. Well, technically they take the baby, they do a blood draw on the baby, and then they find it in the baby. Then you're under suspicion. They do, several house checkups. They do interviews, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, that's really not acceptable. Then I had to go meet with the NICU. And the NICU is like, so we know you're using marijuana. As soon as the baby's born, we're taking the baby to the NICU. I'm like, why? Why are you doing all of this craziness? Well, the baby's gonna have drugs in its system. Like, we just talked about this. It's fine. I'm really comfortable with it. I sent studies. I sent the Jamaica study. I sent reports. I sent historical data on people using cannabis. It did not matter. So my doctor finally says to me, well, you need to, she goes, I shouldn't say this. She goes, I didn't tell you this, but you should go and call the lawyer for patient discrimination because you're not doing anything illegal. This is discrimination. So I called up the chain to Partners Healthcare. And honestly, this was in 2016. I've been in the cannabis space for almost 6 years at that point. And I had a fairly decent network, and I had never once, ever been like, do you know who you're talking to? But when I was on the phone with these people at Partners Healthcare, I was like, I will rain activism hellfire on your hospitals. I will get every pregnant woman in the state who cares about weed sending letters to the governor. We're gonna have a field day with this. Wait till DCF comes to investigate my house. We've got lines of activists with signs out front.
Carrie was like, did you miss the part? Did you miss the part about why I was using it in the first place?
No, it was at that point it didn't matter because they weren't doctors. The doctors, all the doctors were on my side. The doctors were all on my side. Neurology was on my side. My OBGYN was on my side. They're all on my side, except NICU. I don't like that guy. He was not on my side. But it was only the policy. People, the operations management of the healthcare system had a problem because they don't understand it. They don't have policies for it. They have regulations. They get funding. Blah blah blah. Mm-hmm. In the end, I went in for my last OBGYN. I had made an appointment. I was going to go deliver in Maine up at Maine Med because they don't have ridiculous policies like this. I would have been in and out. And I went in for my last OBGYN at Brigham, and my doctor was like, I thought you'd be happier. And I was like, why should I be happy? It's like, what's going on? She goes, they pushed it all through. They said they're not going to file the 51A. They've changed the policy for pregnant women using marijuana at Brigham Women. She told me that they were going to be having like meetings to restructure what every doctor is supposed to do if their patient admits and how they talk about it. But yeah, so they're not, according to my doctor at the time, they were not doing this anymore. They changed the policy. And so if women come to me and they say they're going to have a baby or something they're using, I would just tell them, go to Brigham. Just go to Brigham. They're understanding, they get it. They had to learn the hard way, but they get it.
You took care of it.
No, I was so mad. I was like, we're like, at the time I'm married, we own a home, we have 2 working parents, or like, this was ridiculous. What are they doing? So I took our privilege and I made a point of it. And I feel like there's a lot of people who wouldn't have stood up for themselves. But, I had an opportunity. Fine, you want to pick a fight with me? I'll go to Maine. I can go to another state. I have homes in other places. Like, I can play this.
I kind of just want to point a very key point in your story is that you did have access and an ability to go to Maine. The thing that's most heart-wrenching is my sister's a social worker. We have low-income women who are getting their children ripped away from them. They're being put in jail because they don't have the ability or the access or the funds to be able to say, I'm going to go to Maine. Or the knowledge, or you know what I mean? They don't have access. And so to me, it's really exciting that, you were able to institute this policy, but I want to see us maybe get this done throughout the state, because women, low-income women, Black women, they're getting really impacted by these ignorant ass, and I would say most of them are lawyers, because you said policies. So yeah, that's why we're the most hated group in America. I think
you love them or hate them, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've been on the radio. I've talked about this with other groups and other forums, and it's finding the hospital discrimination lawyer. That was the key. Finding hospital discrimination lawyer. I'm a patient. I am a resident. I am over 21. I am an adult making decisions. You're not going to take my baby for tobacco. You're not going to take my baby for alcohol. So why the hell are you going to take my baby for weed? If you're not falling over, like hurting yourself and doing things that are going to harm you and your baby, it's no one's goddamn business what you do with yourself, frankly. So if it's that hospital discrimination lawyer, every hospital has a hospital discrimination lawyer. Everyone has a patient discrimination lawyer. Like you find that person through, however it is to find them, and then, make that connection, make that push, and defend yourself.
I think if women who are struggling with that, we have people that they can reach out to for help. And I think having that lifeline, is really important. And just even getting that out to mothers, communities of color who really see the brunt end of this, getting these same results, and that echoing for everyone and not just people who have access to certain things. But Kara, that's my favorite story about some of the work that you've done. Thank you so much for sharing. You continue to do what you do, and I love it. So we're going to talk to Emily next. Emily Elmen, who's kind of like one of the more quiet activists. I met you at MassCann's too. You've done a lot. So tell us about yourself and your journey and what you're doing now and all that fun stuff.
You're right. I do kind of fly under the radar. I kind of like that stealth method of operating. It's sort of a subtle activism, because a lot of people wouldn't really suspect that I would be involved in the cannabis community until they get to talking to me, and they're just like, oh my God, I had no idea that you were involved in that realm at all. And my background is actually in music. I went to Berklee College of Music, and that's kind of where my cannabis relationship began. being surrounded by a lot of musicians was a really interesting environment. My father was a musician as well. He was a music teacher, and he did a lot of live performances and was in a lot of bands. It was one of the primary sources of income for my house growing up. So I went to Berklee College of Music, where it was mostly men students. And so I was in the minority there in terms of gender. But in high school, I went to an all-girls boarding school. So it was two very different worlds. It was a high-stress environment in high school where I didn't even think about what life would be like if I was consuming cannabis. It wasn't on my radar at all. And then I went to college and I was like, what's that smell? And that's sort of where my relationship with cannabis began. And I stayed at Berklee for quite a while. I got a degree in performance and also tacked on an extra degree in music business. So that's kind of where I get my business acumen. And I'm really glad I did that, because it's really helped me along the way in terms of advocating for myself and inspiring others to advocate for themselves when it comes to pay negotiation, negotiation of benefits, and other things that you can get for yourself in this industry as a paid professional. But along the way, I was also learning about cannabis as a plant. And again, Kara was the person to look me in the eye one day. It actually was the first day I met you. A friend introduced us and brought you up to the condo that I was living in at the time. And we started smoking and talking, and you said, don't you know cannabis should be legal? And that had never occurred to me. It had never occurred to me. And maybe that's because of my privilege that I had no idea I had at the time. I just didn't even think about it, because it just came so naturally to my life. It wasn't something that I ever had to think about. And then the spotlight was shown on cannabis as a medicine and cannabis as just being a plant and a weed, and that people are going to jail for life, losing their whole lives because of a plant that it's just a weed. It was a moment of revelation that night. And that was the moment that I got involved in activism. I started attending MassCann's meetings and attended every meeting for a year, and then was elected to the board of directors, where I began generating revenue for the nonprofit by procuring sponsorships and creating relationships with companies, ancillary companies within the space, selling banner space, and getting a team together to put those banners up at the Freedom Rally. And I did that for about 3 years. So sponsorship acquisition was my thing. I also did that when I was at Berklee, doing some A&R sponsorships and cultivating other relationships with local businesses. But the MassCan's relationship was extremely rewarding for me. I learned a lot doing that, creating proposals and creating contracts, which I had also learned to do in music school, because we had to create management contracts, publishing contracts, recording deal contracts, all of those kinds of things. So those skills helped me when I was trying to build MassCann's repertoire, when it came to relationships with businesses all over the country who were coming to the Freedom Rally but had no way to advertise themselves and help us in the process. So I did that for about 3 years, and I also was working at the Hempist in Harvard Square. I was the manager there for about, actually, I think it was about almost the same amount of time that I was a director for MassCan's. And that was extremely rewarding as well, because every single day, and I was the only person there because there was only ever one person in the shop because it was so small. So I was encountering people every single day. Almost every customer that came into the shop was just had stars in their eyes and were just overwhelmed by the fact that they were walking into this tiny little garage mall in Harvard Square and seeing a hemp shop that sold hemp accessories, vaporizers, pipes and glass, bongs, and everything you can possibly think of that you might need for, you know, a beginner at least who wants to consume cannabis at home or with friends. But then there was the clothing. You know, hemp is food, fuel, and fiber, and I got the chance to educate thousands and thousands of people that came into the shop about the importance of this plant and how it's been persecuted and how people associated with the plant have been wrongly persecuted and have, like I said earlier, lost their lives, their livelihoods, their families, their friends, because of their involvement with even just hemp. And then they looked around also and saw all the clothes and was asking me about the clothes. And I loved explaining to them that hemp is one of the strongest natural fibers on the planet. And, you know, it was just a short time ago that hemp was being used for so many things, and then it was prohibited. And so that was a really interesting time for me, and it was paralleled with my time as a director for MassCan's. And then and that was probably, I think, in 2014. I left the Hempist in 2016. So 2013 to 2016 is when I was at the Hempist, and you know, part of that time I was director for MassCan's. And where was I going with that?
Edibles.
Edibles, yes, that's edibles. Yes, that's my life right now. In 2006, I made my first batch of brownies, and I had no idea what I was doing. I bought some Mexican brick weed, as they say, but it was a brick weed. It was cheap, you know, not something anybody I know would ever smoke now, but we definitely smoked a little of that. And then I infused some butter with it on the stovetop, not knowing what I was doing. Made my first batch of brownies, and it hit us like a ton of bricks. And I was like, that was the day. I think that was my first batch of brownies when I told myself, I am going to be doing this professionally in 10 years. And that was April of 2006 when I said that. April of 2016 is when I was hired to be a cannabis chef at one of the biggest dispensaries in Massachusetts. And it was a dream come true, and it happened almost on the 10-year mark to the day. And the whole time I just kept plugging along, making batches of everything that I could think of in terms of baked goods. Yeah, so April 2016, I was hired. I had previously started my own little business on the side because I was just having fun doing it, and I got such good feedback from just people in my life about my products. So I was really excited to bring products that I liked to make to the masses. I started out at the dispensary as a production assistant, and so I assisted with making the edibles as well as the RSO. And then my partner in crime there, or non-crime at that point, he decided to choose the extraction route, and I decided to choose the infusion route. So I took over the whole kitchen. It was a 1,200 square foot kitchen. And from then on, for about, at that point, it was, 3 years, I was making everything, formulating all the products. I had input designing the packaging, and I was really able to put some heart and soul into those products that, you know, nowadays I look at these dispensary products, I don't see much heart and soul in any of it. And I think that's one of the things that's really missing from the industry right now. When these huge companies take over the industry, it's really hard for people to have a relationship with their cannabis and have a relationship with their edibles or infused products. it's just sometimes it seems so cold. And so when I'm no longer at that dispensary, but while I was there, I really felt like I was doing a service to the people who were looking for medicine for their bodies and their minds and their souls, because I knew I was putting my energy into those products and really cared so much about what I was doing. You know, the R&D process for making those edibles properly homogenized so that people felt safe knowing that the dosage that they saw on the label was real, was accurate. You know, everything down to the simple flavors, you know, not just putting citrus flavors out there, because citrus flavoring and citrus fruits can interact negatively with different kinds of medicines people are taking. So having a variety was important. So even down to just the flavoring and simple things like that, I really put a lot of thought into. And I've always been a thoughtful person. That's part of how I operate. I put a lot of thought and energy into everything that I do. And I'm really proud of the work that I did within the industry professionally and also as an activist. And I think working with MassCann and also, I also attended NIC. That was such a great experience because knowledge is power. And my goodness, was I empowered after learning as much as I did at that school. And I was also involved with some radio shows. I was involved with Boston Pot Report and a couple other morning shows and music related shows at the same radio station. Those were, I can see Kara reminiscing in her mind. Those were some good old days. Those were some really great times. And it's that knowledge that I've taken with me down the line that's really helped build my confidence into what it is today. And also it helps to surround yourself with really positive, strong personalities and strong women who have been through a lot. We've all been through something. You know, I lost my father in 2015 to esophageal cancer, and I was able to ease his pain a little bit with cannabis, not as much as I would have liked to have done, but I did everything that I could as his medical advocate and medical proxy. But so we've all been through something. You know, my mother doesn't believe in the power of the plant. I brought my grandmother, who's 95. I brought her around to it. My aunts and uncles, and most of my family is on board and super supportive of me and what I'm doing to try and better the world. And that's what everybody in this group is trying to do, you know. And so knowledge is power. So, you know, educating yourself and educating others really is a huge confidence booster. But I gotta say, the confidence, some days are better than others. It can come and go in waves. You just have to have faith in your brain to know that you know this information, and you can't let anybody make you feel like you're unable. You know, I doubt myself all the time, but you know, we're only human. Like I said, the confidence comes and goes in waves. You just have to trust your brain that the knowledge is there, because it is. And like I said, also the energy that you put into your work is really important in terms of, you know, building up the people around you who also, you know, there's strength in numbers. So if you build up the people around you, especially the women around you, you're a force to be reckoned with. So I hope I haven't forgotten anything. I might have, but
we can circle back after. That's you really do have a story that I think nobody knows about. So I'm really glad that you shared it, and I hope people know who you are. And thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for coming on. And up next we have Wendy Turner. Oh, Wendy, this woman, if you don't know Wendy, you don't know what's going on in the world. please, Wendy, tell us about yourself, your journey. You're a proud mother of a cannabis patient who's done so much work. I love Colton. So please tell us.
Well, I come to this journey and this movement totally different than what most of you did, because in 2013, my son, who has Crohn's disease, was not doing well. And we didn't know if he was going to make it. And he was on a lot of pharmaceuticals. And he was tiny and just very, very sickly. He was in failure to thrive, he was in growth failure. He was four means below, or 4 means beyond the standard in growth, and just really, really, really sick in a wheelchair. And this was our last resort. You know, this was our Hail Mary. You know, this was something that we had to do because there was nothing else to do. And if we gave him another pharmaceutical, he was going to die. So my journey starts with a sick kid. I'm not a smoker. I've never used cannabis in my life until Colton started using cannabis. And it was just so eye-opening. I'm a product of the DARE movement. And I was, the Miss Goody Two-Shoes in school. And I never thought that this was a good thing. I never thought that it was a bad thing, but I didn't realize until Colton got sick how important, and the word important is just not even big enough to describe what this plant does for families, for individuals, and for the earth itself. And our journey, like I said, our journey started with Colton getting sick, and we started, researching cannabis because somebody had said, take him back to the earth. It was my grandma. And she was just really adamant that I took him back to the earth, and I started doing natural remedies with him. And so we did. In 2013, we found a friend that we knew had some weed, and we made some brownies for Colton. And for like 2 weeks, he was almost a normal kid. And we were like, wow, something's with this. Maybe the study that we found in Israel is actually right. And this is something that we need to do. So we ended up having to stop doing it because we had to take him to the Mayo Clinic and get all these tests. But we knew that there was something going on. So we took him back to the Mayo Clinic in January of 2014. And the Mayo Clinic said there's nothing that we can do. He's failed all the pharmaceuticals. And right then I was like, okay, well, what about alternative treatments? And they were like, well, we're not going to promote or suggest anything, and blah, blah, blah. And it was just kind of an ordeal because, it just turned legal in Colorado recreationally. So that was all in the news. Just in 2013, right when we were researching it, Charlotte Figge's story came out, which was a real push for us to find knowledge and educate ourselves about cannabis. And they didn't want to say anything. So I'm like, okay, Tommy, there's something about this. It works. And the only great thing about cannabis in our family and what happened with us is that it was the only thing that Colton took that didn't have a side effect. And the only side effect that it could have had was it wasn't going to work. So I wasn't giving my kid cancer. I wasn't giving my kid T-cell lymphoma. I wasn't giving him tuberculosis or histoplasmosis, which is major side effects to all of these medications that he was taking. So I was like, wow, what if it just doesn't work? It's not going to hurt him. So we ended up making a decision to move Colton and my husband, Tommy, to Colorado. And I'm a little different from all you guys because I come from the state of Illinois. I love Massachusetts, and we've been very involved in Massachusetts with the Boston Freedom Rally for a couple of years now, and it's kind of our second home. But we moved him out to Colorado, and within 2 weeks, actually a couple of days, he started actually feeling better. But within 2 weeks, he was out of his wheelchair. And that was March 4th of 2014. And then on July 10th, which was 7/10, which was a great day for us, Colton climbed a mountain. And we were like, he's coming from a wheelchair to climbing a mountain. He's gaining weight. He's walking around. He's eating. What happened? Cannabis happened. And that was it. So it's just been such an amazing journey through all of this. We decided that we weren't going to be quiet about it. We opened our mouths and we started saying, hey, cannabis worked for my kid. He was the first cannabis patient in the pediatric realm for Crohn's disease. And, we were like all by ourselves because we had to figure it out on our own. But we had this great community around us because the community of cannabis is just amazing. And it is all about one love. And we are about helping each other. And I love that. But it's just been such a great experience for us, and that we couldn't stop talking about it. So we've been on every news station that we could across every single state that has worked on legalization. We've gotten involved in the legalization in every state that we possibly could. We have been to DC lobbying. We've done magazines and TV and Weedakit and TLC, and just trying to tell Colton's story because it changed his life. So we knew that we were going to be able to change other kids' lives just like we changed his. And I will have to admit on live Zoom that we have never ever pursued any kind of media attention except for the Boston Freedom Rally. We wanted to be there so bad that my husband, he contacted Bill Flynn and got into, working out, coming to the Boston Freedom Rally so Colton could speak on the main stage. And Colton got off that stage the very first time that he spoke. He opened the Freedom Rally in, I think, 2015, and then spoke a few hours after that. And he got off that stage and he was like, Dad, people that made a difference in this world and changed this world has spoke here. And I just did. And I was like, oh my gosh, for him to understand the impact that you all have had in Boston, and it's just amazing. And we appreciate that you included us. So yeah, it's been a wild ride. So, but
You're
that's
gonna make me cry. Stop it.
Who cut the onions over here?
I'm like tearing up over here.
Somebody let it go.
I'm sorry.
No,
we love you guys. We love you guys.
Yes, we. That's I still have pictures of him speaking on that stage. And I think we have videos too of his speech, and he is, kudos to you for raising such a gentleman and someone who's so well spoken at such a young age, and just he's wise beyond his years. And Mom's gonna take a lot of credit for that.
Mm-hmm.
So, thank you.
Well, and Dad too. This is a team effort, but we've been very lucky. We've been really blessed to have great kids. And for them to understand the journey that they're on. So, they're the next generation that is going to change the world. And we've made sure that they understand that. But we've been through a lot. Kara was talking about DFS or DCFS or whatever you guys call it. In Colorado, it's called CPS. We had to deal with the same thing. So when Colton was using cannabis in the very beginning, we had to take him to the doctor to see if it was actually working. And I called 8 different doctors, and they all said, no, we don't take cannabis patients. We don't want to have anything to do with it. And then finally at the last doctor, I was bawling my eyes out, and I was like, what am I going to do? You know, what? He has to have a colonoscopy. It's been 7 months. He's been on cannabis for 7 months. He hasn't seen a doctor since. And he was 22 inches or 22 centimeters of diseased bowel, and skip lesions and fistulas and ulcers and granulomas and all the things that is horrible in Crohn's disease was going on with him. And I need to know what's going on inside of his body. And they said, well, we will do a colonoscopy, but if it doesn't come out the way we want it to, then we're going to call CPS and we are going to have you arrested. Well, that scared the living crap out of me, but yet I said, bring it on, because I knew that it was going to be okay for Colton. But at that time, Colton was only 14. My oldest son was 15, and my daughter was only 12. So that meant that not just Colton got taken away, but my other 2 kids did too. And that was scary. And we pushed against that. And we won the situation. Colton went into that colonoscopy and came out with flying colors. He had no active Crohn's disease. There was no inflammation or anything going on in his gut. So having that, you have to face federal prison to save your kid's life was really scary. And not only that, if we would have lost, then they would have taken Colton and put him on Humira, and he wouldn't be here right now. And so fighting for these things is really, really a scary situation. And I applaud all those mothers out there that have done those things and put themselves and their children's health first before jail time, you know. And I would do it all over again, and I would push. And then also, you know, we've had to deal with health policy too. So Colton got sick one time. We came home to Illinois from Colorado to visit because Colton hadn't been home in almost over a year. And he ended up with a flare because we didn't take our medicine with us like idiots. And then, of course, you know, Colton coins the phrase, I'd rather be illegally alive than legally dead.
Hey.
Yeah, and we do something like that and take him across state lines with no medicine. And then he gets sick. He ends up in the hospital. We end up getting kicked out of one hospital because he was a cannabis patient, because their policy was no cannabis unless you were a seizure kid, and then you're okay, you can use it. So we ended up going from Colorado Springs to Denver in an ambulance because the policy of one hospital was that of not allowing cannabis to be used, not even in the hospital setting, but by a person in the hospital prior use. So we didn't take that medicine into the hospital. We just went to the hospital because he was sick. You know, we didn't have any medicine on us. We didn't give it to him while he was there. So we ended up having to push for him to use cannabis in Denver Children's Hospital. And we changed that policy for not just kids that had seizures, but kids that had any kind of disease. So kids with cancer, kids with Crohn's disease, kids with pain, they're able to use cannabis because we had to push for that policy. And I'm so proud of those moments. Even though I was alone, I was scared, we didn't know what was going on. Sometimes, you know, we just have to put on our capes and just freaking pound through this stuff. And I just, you know, Colton has been such a trooper in all of this. And I don't think that if he wasn't the person that he is, if I would be the mom that I am, because he's just amazing. And he just loves this plant. He loves the people around this plant. He loves the movement. He wants it descheduled and just completely free. And I just, it saved his life, and I'm just so proud of him. So we've been through a lot.
Yeah, that is a journey. That is all kinds of policies are being changed though because of the work that's being done. So I'm honored to be sitting here with all of you, and we have, last but not least, we have Kibra.
I want to say thank you to Wendy personally, because you changed my reason and my focus for cannabis as medicine. And I never got a chance to thank you in person because I was so starstruck in 2015 that I couldn't even approach you guys. And I honestly just wanted you to have your moment. And I just sat back in awe. I could have been Snoop Dogg up there and I still would have watched Colton, honestly. So I just want to thank you because I was working at a dispensary at the time, and we were really working on trying to get, people to believe us that this was medicine. And we could only get them to believe, and I say it like it is. You shouldn't have to have cancer or AIDS or a seizure disorder to use cannabis, right? Anybody who has any issue, a patient says, this works for me, believe them. If it was a pill and we said it worked, we would believe them. Mm-hmm. And you put a face to an invisible disease or illness, right? And you fought for it, and you helped me believe in medicine, cannabis medicine. And I remember at that time thinking, also you, Kibra, things like this motivated me to go back to medical school, because I want to help work with people who suffered like you. My son is your son's age. And I just wanted to say thank you, because you have put a fire under so many women's butts. We talk about, oh, this will motivate me. For me, it was you. And you changed the game for me. I decided I'm leaving the dispensary and I'm going back to school, and I'm going to understand what Humira does to you. So I want to understand what these patients are really going through, you know what I mean, on a real level, so that we can truly treat them. So I just personally thank you for that.
Thank you for that. That's our calling in life. We really want people to change and to understand and to educate themselves. Because we were those hypocrites. We were those people that were like, oh no, we're not gonna let our kid use cannabis. Smoking pot is for idiots and bad people and blah blah blah. We had that whole thing in our head, and to make such a flip because of and this is, I'm typical of most people. If it doesn't bother me, or if it doesn't have anything to do with me, I don't deal with it, a lot like you wearing a mask right now, or, not wearing a mask, or whatever you're doing, staying in quarantine, going to work, whatever. But if it doesn't affect you directly, then you just don't even think about it. And we were very, very lucky to have that situation happen to us. Even though we would take Crohn's disease away from Colton in a second. If I could take that and I'd have it instead of him, I would do it. But Crohn's disease opened our minds to so many other possibilities, and cannabis was one of those possibilities. And once we started researching all of that, we were like, wow, we have to do something to change this throughout the whole world. And we just had to speak up. And, I'm proud to say that, we're dealing with a cancer patient right now. He's 87 years old, and he never, ever used cannabis. He was all against it. It's the devil's lettuce, blah, blah, blah. And on 4/20, he used his first suppository, and he just cried. 10 minutes later, he had no pain.
Oh, bad.
And that's what this is about. It took him 87 years, but we changed him. And we need to do that with one person every single time. It only takes one person to change mind. And that's just our goal, is to help every person that we can possibly help, and to spread this love and this journey and the knowledge that we have of this plant to everyone. And so I thank you. And I really love going to these places and talking to all of you people. And please come to me next. We'll be in Boston at the next Boston Freedom Rally. So you better come up and give me a hug.
Are you kidding? We're chilling. We're chilling. Well, thank Grandma for me. I'm glad you listened to her.
Awesome.
And
Thank
Emily, I wanted to say to you too. Hold on, sorry. Emily, I wanted to say to you too. I remember the time I met you. Was back when we didn't have all the sponsorships and crazy flyers and cool after party, whatever sponsors, but you handed me a pack of papers with an address on it for the after party. Do you remember? Do you remember that?
Oh, I remember that. I think I still have one of those packs.
I think I do too. That's one thing I might have saved, but yeah, it was on and popping from there. So back in that was how she did it. She was like from this little tent right in the addresses to bring us all together. So all right. And Kiba, your daughter gave birth today, huh? So happy birthday to your baby girl.
What?
Today?
26
But 26 years ago today?
Yes.
Live from the hospital.
Kira, you were the first medical professional that I had ever heard state in a public forum that CBD was in fact psychoactive and it was just not hallucinogenic. And it stuck with me forever because I'm not a medical professional, so God forbid I say things in any capacity, but when I heard you say it, I was like, yes, thank you.
Listen,
It just, so,
I was hanging out with the Knox doctors and Dr. Rachel Knox and Jessica Knox. They are the ones who really open up my mind to that. So, we're just sharing information so that we can understand this plant more and more every day.
But tell us about your journey, you amazing woman.
Well, first, just thank you for putting this together. I'm so enjoying this conversation. Like, I'm just sitting back. I was glad. I was like, okay, I can just keep listening to you guys and your amazing stories. And so thank you, Maggie. Thank you, MassCann's. And as I'm listening, I'm just thinking about, the whole theme of this conversation is women in cannabis. And I think what's really important and what we're seeing is that one special quality women have is that we see a need, we see a void, we see a loved one hurting, we see something that we can intervene and make someone's life better, and we do that. And it doesn't matter what it is, we find that thing and we go about changing the world. And that's what everybody up here has been doing, but my career, like I've been a nurse, I started off, I was like a CNA. I went through the whole thing, CNA, LPN. I became an RN. And right about the time I became an RN, and I'm a mother. So y'all know I got a 26-year-old daughter. Today's her birthday. Happy birthday, Taylor. And 2 grandchildren. And then I have a set of triplets who are 18. And so I've always worked in home care and I always worked in my community. And I worked in the communities that were the poorest, the most violent, the most forgotten communities, because I felt that I had something to brighten up someone's day, to show a little extra care and concern, or to be able to make some sort of difference within my community. We have to take care of ourselves and our people, and so that was really important to me. My grandmother, and I was raised where family was really, really important to me. And my grandparents were specifically instrumental in every aspect of my life. And one of them, my grandmother, Wendy Turner, she was an 88-year-old woman. I tell the story all the time. Vibrant, drove, had a boyfriend, was fly, all that stuff. Had an aneurysm at a service and almost died. And they were able to sustain her life, bring her back to a life, because she actually did die, I believe. And then she went into the ICU and to rehab, and then came to live with me. And I was, this is my duty. I'm her granddaughter. I'm going to take care of her. Plus, I'm a nurse, so I figured it would make it, simple, easy. It was far from any of that. She was so debilitated and so different than what I had always known of my grandmother. She wasn't walking, she wasn't eating, she wasn't engaging with the family. She was obviously depressed, withdrawn, and she just wasn't participating in therapy at all. And they were going to discharge her. And at the time I was still working full time. My triplets were, this was 7 years ago. So my triplets were 10, 11 years old, and my daughter was away at school, so it was really difficult for me to manage all this. And so I was just like, Lord, please show me how to help my grandmother, because I don't know what to do. And it came so clearly to me. That's why I always say that God is in the cannabis business, in the cannabis industry, because just like that, I remembered my grandmother saying that she used to have to smoke a joint and take a bath to get her body moving every day. And so I had forgotten that, it was something she did privately. And so I was like, okay, let's medicate my grandmother. And within a month, I saw such a difference. She was eating, walking with a walker, engaging in therapy, interacting with the family. Like it was such a turnaround. And after medicating people, my own people, now I'm starting to feel guilty because I'm medicating people. I'm throwing these pills at people for the last 10 years. The same thing, never seeing any type of improvement. But I give my grandmother weed because that's what I knew it as of the time. And so, I'm like, I'm giving my grandmother weed, and look at this. I want to learn more about this plant. I want to be able to figure this out. And that's how I got connected to NIC, because a couple of things. I had decided that I wanted to know more about it. I did decide that I wanted to be in the business of cannabis. Hadn't really gotten the advocacy bug yet until I got to school. But I had said, in order to be taken seriously, especially as a Black woman, because it's always 10 times harder for us to be, believed, respected, valued, all these things. And so, I knew that I at least, even though I was a nurse, I at least had to have some sort of knowledge base about cannabis to be able to really engage in this industry the way that I wanted to, and to be able to sit at the table where I felt I belonged, and engage in these conversations. And so I looked for a school. I got a little ADHD, so I can't do online learning. So I wanted to go to an actual school. And one thing I didn't say, most of you all, except for Wendy and Melissa, you're Rhode Island, but, I'm from Connecticut. So I found NIC, and I drove and I was working full time, and I would drive on the weekends 2 hours each way to go and take these courses. And I'm a biology major nurse, so I was completely a science geek, still am. And I was very engaged by, learning about cannabis as medicine, and learning about the endocannabinoid system, and learning about, terpenes and cannabinoid all these things really engaged me. But what really struck me, was the fact that when we took the class about the history of cannabis, and we learned about prohibition and the racially motivated factors for the prohibition of cannabis, and really putting all this together, and the war on drugs. Now I'm 43, so I'm a 90s girl through and through. Like, I grew up right in the middle of the crack era, the war on drugs, all that stuff. But I never really put the things together like that. And that saying, they say, oh, she's woke. Like, honestly, it felt like that. It felt like something snapped, and I woke up, and I realized that there was a system that was in place to continue to terrorize, demonize, torture, traumatize, keep it disenfranchisement in my community. And I just was like, it's gotta end. And they're using this plant to do it. Now I know that it's great, and I could, and so it was just a really aha moment for me. And I knew to be effective, I had to be attached to the right people. And so I really got connected to Kara at NIC, and some of the other instructors who encouraged me to connect with Women Grow. And I ended up connecting with Women Grow because I did want to be in business. I knew I could do business with heart, with integrity, and I wanted to be a part of this billion-dollar industry. I mean, we've talked a lot about, the things that we're doing from the heart, but it takes money to be philanthropy. Takes money. It takes money to reinvest in these communities. to create jobs, to all these things. And so it was important that I married the two. And then, of course, you know, being in Massachusetts during your fight for legalization, I got to interact with Chanel Lindsay and Shalene Title, and again, all of my NIC instructors. And once I got connected with Women Grow, Beth Waterfall became my mentor and really took me under her wing and like showed me the ropes. And to this day, like I could call Beth and I know I could get not a real conversation about, you know, how to think and grow my business. And I appreciate all of the connections that I have with these ladies. And so, you know, but anyway, one of the things like I wanted to just kind of like, and so I own some medical cannabis centers, and we really target our community, my community, poor folks, Black and brown folks, the usually disenfranchised, the people who don't subscribe to natural plant-based medicines. Usually they're not thinking holistically. We're trying to change mindsets, because like what Lori said in the beginning about, you know, not believing in yourself and knowing you're beautiful and knowing that you're all these things, that is something that my community has not naturally had. And it's interesting that Lori is a brown woman, but she was raised in a different environment. So it just shows me that you cannot be from a thing and totally understand and have empathy if you open your mind to understand that. And so it's been a challenge in my community because, you know, especially Black women, we've been told that we're not pretty, we're not desirable, we're mean, we're angry, we're all these things, we're broken. And to an extent, there's a lot of that's true. Like we have had to be, because of all the things that have happened. And one of those ways in which they have done that is through the cannabis plant, by demonizing that, by breaking up our homes, by sending our men and women to prison, and just ruining our lives and keeping that cycle going. And so, you know, it's just really important that we keep that community, like I've heard over and over and over again, that should be our first focus. Like when I went to speak at my first Women Grow event, and I spoke about a young man from my community who had suffered every kind of trauma you could imagine by the time he was 13, started from birth. He ended up committing murder, going to prison. But like, there were so many people along the way who could have intervened and done something to make a difference, you know, in this young man's life. And so being in cannabis, like, not only like started me looking at the war on drugs and how that worked, but really starting to look at the trauma in my community, really recognizing my own trauma and being willing to tell people I'm in therapy and there's nothing wrong with it and that's okay. And that the things that you're irritable, you're hypervigilant, you can't focus because you have been traumatized repeatedly over and over and over again from birth, and then told that that was okay and that's the way it's supposed to be. And so it's just been really important for me to enlighten my community, and cannabis has given me that ability. Like, you know, they say it's the herb that heals the land, and it does. Like, it really can, because it sparks conversation, it opens your mind, and it allows you to see things in a new way, and it gives you perspective that you never had, and an empathy, and like, it hurts my heart. Like, I can't focus just on business now. I have to advocate for my community. And it's not just about cannabis. I'm looking at prison reform. Right now, prisoners are dying with COVID-19, not getting any treatment. And these are people, non-violent offenders, pregnant women are in prison, like putting both themselves and their babies at risk. And like, and this is all like, and then, you know, let's not talk about the juvenile justice system. You know, I now volunteer on the juvenile review board in my town. And it's an interventionary step to, like, if a kid between the ages of 7 and 17 commits a crime, instead of them going before a judge, they come to us and we say, you know what? Why did you do X? We get to the bottom, we ask the whys, and we get to what the root of the problem is, and we intervene before it becomes a criminal and that cycle begins. And so that's what cannabis has done for me. Like, I have purpose. I have reason to wake up in the morning. I have something. And I always have, like, God has always blessed me, like, but I've had struggles, and it's been very difficult to see so many of my peers and people die and struggle and be in the cycles of poverty and never really building anything. And so, being able to offer like Canna Health as a it's not really franchise, but like a licensee process is a way for people to open a business and start to build generational wealth and start to think differently and start to think about healing and all these things. So I'm so grateful for cannabis and what it's done, how it has helped me to become a better woman, to be more mindful, more thoughtful, more concerned on a globe, and to know that I can make a difference. Like, I never really thought that was possible. I didn't know nurses could influence policy. What? But who else would influence policy? We're there with the people. Like, we are the ones that are really going through seeing the things that work and what doesn't work, and how it can slant one way and totally make it so that we have healthcare disparities and how we can solve those issues. And so, but I would have never, ever, ever been where I am right now if it wasn't for cannabis and learning about this plant and connecting with you lovely ladies on this call and really being able to make a difference in my community has been the biggest blessing of my life. So
That was amazing.
I would like to, she was talking about finding purpose, and I would definitely want to, like, the whole thing about stigma and making sure people have the right mentality for this industry is something that I'm passionate about. And through this, I found my passion. So I launched, I don't know if you guys know, a podcast called Legally Great. And the intent of that podcast is to disseminate information about your own greatness. How does energy work? Do you guys know what existed before the Big Bang? What are your chakras? What are the meridians? How does understanding your own body help you take ownership over your own healing journey? And I get so tired of hearing people repeat things where it's the same record of disempowerment, of being a victim. And I know that if you apply your mind correctly and you apply your action through the across space within the parentheses of time, and you apply the correct action, you will change. Things will get better in your life. It's a fact, and it's an equation that has worked for me, and I've seen it throughout history. So I feel extremely passionate about this aspect, because but for the stigma, but for the ignorance in the minds of the people, we wouldn't be where we are right now. And so if you guys want to come listen to the Legally Great podcast, that's why I did it.
How do we listen? How do we listen? Because I sure want.
It's on all platforms. You can go on Apple, Spotify, Anchor. Just type in Legally Great. It's one word.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think what you were talking about, Kiba, is that the plant has a method of pulling out your gifts. And the industry brings you in here like, oh, Lori, you're a lawyer, you have a consulting company, you help people that way. But really, if you ever get on a phone call with me and my clients, you'll notice I spend most of my time teaching you how to bring in what you want into your life and remove those self-limiting beliefs that keep you from achieving what you want. So, find your passion, in this industry will provide you an opportunity to shine within that.
And that's very important. And it's really important to also understand that is like foreign language to so many people. And so, like, as we're like talking to people about this, understanding that we got to meet them where they are, because so many people don't even know their value. They have no idea. No one's ever said those words to them. And so, healing those traumas and getting to the core of things is so very important, in conjunction with taking those daily mantras and doing those things, especially as women. We have to make sure that we're continually feeding our souls and our spirits every single day. And so it's really important that we integrate all of those things, a little bit of cannabis, a little bit of talk therapy, a little bit of, I am beautiful, I am amazing. All of that mixed together can make some amazing results, and having a real cause and something that you're believing in.
Well, I'm feeling
It's
very
interesting.
nourished.
Yeah, people think we need to know everything about everything in order to teach people stuff or to be a things. The college I'm going to right now, I'm a tutor, anatomy, physiology, and I tutor some nursing classes, right? And what do you think? I remember every little nook and cranny in the body? No, a lot of the time when the students come to me, they come to me with a problem of organizing what's already in their mind, like what Emily was speaking to. Like, we have that inside ourselves, and a lot of what we do as women, I think, is help corral and organize them, how to teach them the tools are there and how to organize those thoughts in order to process, you know what I mean, the hard work that they already did, and to not stay stuck. So I'm not sitting there teaching them every little bone or everything about, you know, physiological thing about the body. Sometimes I need to, but the majority of the time people in life, not just teaching, people come with an issue, a problem, and we just teach them how to organize what's already there. So people in the community that think, you know, like, we're the only ones that are doing this. No, everyone's doing this every day, and you don't need to know every single little thing about every single thing. You be cool about it, you know what I mean? Be yourself about it, but just empower people to take the tools that they already have and teach them that they're already farther ahead of the game than they maybe think that they are, because most of us are. It's there.
It's within us. It's within us already.
And we all, I'm afraid. Look, you think I want to step back? No, but look, what happened?
But let me just say, I am so very proud of you, and you're just not in nursing school. You're like killing nursing school. Like, your grades is on point. You tutoring, you're like taking over, and like, I'm gonna be so proud to share this field with you.
I want to be by your side. Thank you. Look, it's important to me as an adult learner. I'm 40, right? I'm 43. I'm 40. Come back. So I'm 40 now, and it's, as an adult learner, it's empowering and it's important. It's time to like take a step out of that. Oh, I used to be in a wheelchair. You know what I mean? I used to be over 300 pounds. Like, I've had to transition myself multiple layers. I had to peel away to find, like, who am I and where is my space? And digging into school the way I have, perhaps it's a little, you know, obsessive, but that's where I find my peace. That's where I find my sanity, through education. And I feel like the more I know, the more I understand, the more in just a couple of years, I'm going to be able to, you know, help somebody understand that physiological process. And I mean, you know, the next Colton mom, right? The next mom, I might be able to help teach them about those processes a little bit better. And if I can only just help one person through that education, then, you know, sleepless nights have all been worth it for all of us. And we all feel that way. But I just want to, I think one of the themes when we do workshops in public and when people jump on board, they always think this advocacy is like, you have to have been in it for all this time or whatever. And it doesn't matter. You know, Kara's an OG. She'll be the first one. We are afraid to get up on that stage every single time. We don't always know what we're going to say. I don't know what.
Never.
Tell me about yourself. Shit, how much time you got? You know what I mean? So it's about.
Oh my God. I get to, like, it's like my turn to go up on the Boston Freedom Rally stage, like, every year, like, for 10 years now. And I'm sweating and I'm panicking and I'm like touching notes and I'm like, maybe I shouldn't use the notes. I get nervous at the end. I put the notes away. I don't use the notes. I go off and then I have no idea what I say for 5 minutes. I just yammer on.
One of the last times I went up,
everyone's clapping and I can run away.
I just made Eve Marie give me her baby and I was like, all right. I was like, I don't know, just give me a kid.
Yeah. People don't even think that I get nervous. Yeah. People are like, Lori, you get nervous? Yo, I had a full panic attack before one event that, and it's about having the tools to get you through this. And that's what I love, the fact that I get panic attacks before these events for one reason. Because I know that when I tell somebody that Lori gets panic attacks, it'll help them calm down. Yeah. Because they're like, yo, but you're always talking in front of people.
Yeah.
Fear
is to mitigate, like,
I get nervous every time. Every time I'm nervous. Whew.
I make Colton do it, you guys. I don't do this. I make Colton do it because it's too scary. And it's so emotional for me because I going through Colton's journey is PTSD all over again. But I know that I have to do it. I know that I have to get in front of those people and say, this is what happened to our family. Don't let it happen again to another family. And that you just find that bravery because you know that there's some other person out there that is going through what you're going through that needs to hear what you have to say. And but like I said, I mainly make Colton do it, so I'm lucky. But everybody's voice has to be heard, and you guys are just amazing. And keep going, keep saying it, keep telling the stories.
There's a lot of pain
I just, like it just is so crazy because I never have been this type of person. And so I had to become that because again, I saw a void and a need, and information wasn't getting to my community, and things were happening that was would directly affect my community, that has been devastating my community, and then we weren't as a part of the conversations, and that just seemed crazy to me. And I'm looking around like, who's gonna go? And there was nobody to go. And so I went, and I have connected to every organization that I can, like every meeting that they had in Connecticut, every time they got together, anytime there was something to discuss about cannabis, I wanted to be there to take note. I am waiting to tap somebody else in, like, and really let someone else start to, be seen and heard and really share their thoughts, but a lot of times we are the only people, it is in Wendy's case, she said it was the last resort, for Colton. And that's the thing that I'm trying to work on too in my nursing practice, is not making this be the last resort. In my other work, I'm a hospice nurse, and we are talking a lot about end of life care and medications and things of that nature. And a lot of people choose hospice like when they are at their last moments, like the family will finally say, okay, we'll accept hospice. But hospice has all these benefits that if you accept it late, you don't feel the full benefit of that. You don't get the extra support, you don't get the extra equipment, you don't get the extra services, you don't get the comfort, you don't get that focus. And the same thing with cannabis. There are so many people who have chosen cannabis as the last resort. And I would really love to start changing that mindset so that cannabis is the first line option for people, like that doctors are having this conversation before they introduce opioids and other things that are as Miss Wendy said, like just basically killing us, so I'm hopeful that we can start changing that for people.
I am hell-bent on these doctors that are talking about, I don't know what you're doing, but keep doing it. We need you doctors to step up and help us, because I didn't throw myself back into school for nothing, right? Like we need people that have these letters behind their names to talk about the efficacy of this, to support, because the snowball happened. We all watched this. We were around. We saw it happen. We saw all those reporters take hold. We saw all it happening. Really, all we need is people from different spectrums to step on board. And then our struggle becomes lessened. We can take that pain and really report that.
Just think if we had Colton was diagnosed with Crohn's disease in 2011, and he immediately went on these nasty pharmaceuticals. Just think if he wouldn't have had to. If he would have got diagnosed in 2011 and immediately started cannabis, would we have a T-cell lymphoma scare? Would he have rheumatoid arthritis and lupus? Because those were side effects of medications that he was taking. Side effects gave him 2 other diseases. But yet, if he would have had cannabis in the beginning, like most people, at this moment, we're still doing last resort issues. Oh, well, this didn't work, that didn't work, that didn't work. Let's try cannabis. Well, why don't you try cannabis first?
Right.
Let's make this a pact that we push the fact that cannabis needs to be used as a first resort, not a last resort.
All right, my hands in.
That's the first resort.
That's how I do it.
Oh yeah, my hands in. Pinky swear.
Pinky swear in the air, because it's always there.
Yeah.
You were trying to jump in, I think.
I was gonna move it a little bit, but I'm glad that you got to say that, because that's like really good. It's the first resort, and it's also the exit drug.
Yes.
Yes. So, I'm just seeing how we could flip this to help people understand where we are. But I myself feel like, again, I grew up in Haiti, and I came here, and I'm trying to understand, because I was forced to be Black when I came here, if that makes sense. Because I learned how people were going to treat me based on the way they perceived me, and I wasn't raised that way. But I know that in this country, it was a time for for a group of people who've been disadvantaged to economically change the destiny of their families. And so I personally feel like a lot of this conversation is hijacked. We have an opportunity to make it easy for people who deserve it to get into this industry. And nothing is ever easy in cannabis. I use that word just to to show. But that's not what's happening. What happened was they make it seem as if giving you a label as social equity or economic empowerment is a favor. You're doing me a favor. But then again, when your government was writing laws to break up these families, we were doing you a favor with our lives. But now you're doing me a favor. Like, you guys, the more I research, I've been teaching cannabis law at Suffolk for the past 3 semesters. Every semester, I get more information about the level to which this government and your media has been in bed to brainwash the American people into creating a class of people that they would label as criminals so that they can remove love from them and feel okay when they treated them like less than animals. And I don't even like to say less than animals because animals deserve respect and love as well. So less than demonic entities. So I really want to see people shut the fuck up when they're talking about economic empowerment, social equity. Oh my God, they're complaining. You shut up. Do you understand what your government did to these people? And not just, and I'm also going to say not every economic empowerment applicant is a person who went through that struggle. So let's all be real, which is why I'm tired of these languages. I want it to be, if you've been marginalized, bro, get in this. But what will that entail? It will entail is taking the time to get to know who's applying, as opposed to getting the time to meet the pockets of those applying. But no one listens to Big Mama.
Yeah, because the fact of the matter is most of the people that are affected by this economic empowerment could never even get their stake in the game anyway.
Well, when they gave us economic empowerment, and there's no shade to the CCC, but there was about a month for them to implement this. There are 7 steps, like the chakras, go to the podcast. There are 7 steps in this licensing process. One of which is you need real estate. You need a host agreement. You need to have a community outreach meeting. You tell me these economic empowerment applicants had a month to experience their priority. Get the fuck out. I need people's words, actions, and hearts to match. Don't piss on my leg and tell me it's raining. And that's exactly what this shit is. Sorry to be so
we tried.
I was raised by a grandmother with a beautiful mouth.
They chewed up all the real estate at the beginning when they allowed priority for all the RMDs, and
that's what the hell happened. So we gotta know what's happening.
Talk about that being the root of the fucking problem. That tidal waved and ripple affected the downfall of that program. Yeah. There was intention there, and it was massacred. I know.
We went look.
I think that, but I don't think that's a problem. See, if they didn't have real estate if real estate wasn't a thing to begin with, see, this is why I talk to you. When you're fighting the system, they get you fighting against the little pieces, not seeing the whole shit. Why did we need real estate in the first place to get licensed?
Yeah.
We could have had provisional where we had an asset where I could go to my rich friends, which I don't even know because. You have to go and network and meet people because you cannot get at that point you couldn't get funding from banks, right? So you needed friends. So I have no assets, no nothing. You're telling me that I have to go raise funds and companies aren't going to come and target me and try to take all. Have you ever tried to raise money with no assets? Just basic math tells you they're going to take your whole company.
So you know what this sounds like to me? It sounds like the slave game. Where what we're going to do is we're going to find people who are economically empowered and we're going to use them as our chess pieces to maneuver around the industry and call it economic empowerment. Really, they're going to get 1% and the other 90, the 1% is going to get the 99. And that's
that's it for me. I just like to know what it is. I like if you care, tell me, act like you care. But don't give me some bullshit like, oh, you have priority, you have this. And every single second it gets whittled down because of. I'm not saying it was intended because obviously life brings things up. But when we say this ain't working, when we say we can't find real estate, when we say there's no money, when we say the host agreement process is fucked up, we need that to be removed from us. And I see the intent with delivery and social consumption, but social consumption, how long is it going to take for people to start making money from that? Delivery, show me how you can make millions off that. Show me. Somebody, please. Okay, then. So the most lucrative licenses are not being given to the people who have been harmed the most, who still have family members in jail. I have a client who called me who just got out of jail about 4 weeks ago for marijuana. Do you know how insulting that is for him to walk in front of Netta and see that he can't go in? I mean, to see that he can't go into the industry rather.
Might as well put
Like, you guys, we
sign
gotta
up that
this
says
whole system's fucked. I'm tired of fighting over pieces of it.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, we have to, you, like, Lori, what you do, educating the community and keeping it real and telling them what the real deal is, you know, is so important, because there's so many people making this seem like this is some pie in the sky, you know, it's all just gonna fall down.
Yeah.
You know,
Like it really exists, like it actually exists.
Exactly. And it's not gonna be like that. But I also do say there are things that are possible, and we have to think outside of the box. And, you know, for me, like, I was able to start a business and I didn't need a license. You know, I was able to find a way because I wanted to be in this industry, and I wanted to find a way to use what I had to do what the things that I felt I could do in this industry. And a lot of people are able to do that, to think outside of the box and really try to create something innovative. You know, I think of Asia Atwood and her Trello machine. Like, come on now. Like that's something that she didn't need a license for. And we need to be encouraging, you know, our communities that don't have a lot of that. You know, they don't have the money to, you know, invest, and they don't have people investing in them, that they think they can still engage in this industry. And even if they don't actually want to work within the industry, you can make sure and be a part of that advocacy, that those funds from that are generated go back into your community, and that they're used appropriately. Like, they're used to fund change, they're used to fund education, they're used to fund after school programs, and really like do training our communities to get out of this cycle. Like, so even if you can't physically just, you know, all right, I'm getting a dispensary tomorrow, there's ways that the people who were harmed can really benefit, even without being directly involved or having licenses. But we got to keep it real with them,
especially with advocating for them to use the money, because at the end of the day, the miseducation of the American people started way before the civil rights movement, which is one of the pivotal moments. So they started miseducating the African people in this country intentionally. So and this is around the time when the Industrial Revolution started. So you're miseducating them, so they miss the boat on the opportunity to get jobs. And so what happens? And then they pump crack into their neighborhoods. So I need people, I love to paint pictures of the America that I walked into. And this is what I found. This is what I had to learn and assimilate into. And it infuriated me that that's what my brothers and sisters have been dealing with in this country. And so when we talk about funds, y'all need to educate them. Y'all need to put money back in those neighborhoods to make sure that the schools are what they fought for initially before they forced them to integrate. Remember what they were asking for, remember?
And that's really one of the things that I love about the women on this panel that we're on right now, is because, yes, they, like me and you, Lori, are the only brown people up here, but they have used their privilege to make changes for us and to be instrumental and make, like, Beth gives me a platform every time she has an opportunity, you know, and people don't get to see that many people who look like me, come from where I come from, and able to accomplish and make and really do things to make a change in our community. They need to see that. And so I really think it's important. Like, yes, fucked up shit happened. God, I hope my mother's not listening. Lots of it, repeatedly, and it kept happening. And I'm mad about it. And people are hurt from it, and they have to heal from it. But we can work together. That's why I brought up that point about you not being from here. Like, people think just because they're not Black and they don't have that experience, they can't understand it. But you, even though you get to feel it now because you're in that skin, but that's that empathy that we all need to have for each other. Like, to be able to step out of ourselves and say, you know what, that was wrong what happened to you. What, I didn't have anything to do with it personally, maybe if that's the attitude you want to have, but what do we do to change it going forward so it doesn't happen again? Because it's a cycle. You see this, the history of slavery, Jim Crow, all the, like, this has gone on and on and on. But together, like, we as women, we can stop all these cycles, and then we make a better world for everybody. everybody.
I think that's what womanhood is in general, right? And that's where we find our common purpose.
Exactly.
It's not right. What's right is what's right, right? Maggie, you stood up in the dispensaries, right? Mold. We do not want mold. We don't want that. You stood up. You said, look, this is not just for privileged white people. Laura, you educate people every day. Wendy, you stood up to all the parents. Emily, for the integrity of the edibles. Look at me, I'm Italian. I talk a lot with my hands. Sarah, you stood up.
Me too.
You could have had your kid taken from you, right? Everybody has stood up, right? We found that common thread within us. And I think that that's what we need. We can talk, right? Yes, it is a Black issue. It's a disenfranchised issue. It's a class issue. It's an educational issue. It's a funding issue. There's so many issues, right? Let's talk about the solution. Let's talk about the common thread. Let's talk about what we've done, right? Because what happens in activism a lot is we talk about what's wrong. And yes, we need to vent. We need to get it out, right? But we need to build off the work of each other. From being back from the old school in activism, we all know so many people try to reinvent the wheel. It's there. It's there. The foundation is there. But how do we get them to truly listen, right? What do we have to do, right? We stood outside with signs long enough. Where's the money? Where's the funneling? Where's the funding going, right? We need to look at this policy. Why, right, Frank, you were talking about opening up the delivery service, right? Talking about funding real quick. If we tap into one of those things, right, sometimes we're so focused looking at the big picture. If we tap into one of those and force some of the tax money to go into the funding of the equity or to purchasing real estate that kitchens can use on a revolving basis, right? And certain companies that we've all discussed going into, if we start really initiating those solutions and the planning of that, taking that pain and purposing it, like I try to talk about a lot of the time, right? I think we can find that common thread and truly, sew this all together. And I always want to, as much as I want to express the pain, you know what I mean? I always want people to have hope and find the purpose or talk about the solutions too, because
I agree. I also think a lot of people don't know, to be honest with you. I go into the hood and I have these talks all the time and people don't know. And that's why the stigma's still there. I think if people knew, there would be no stigma. We wouldn't have to be fighting. You see what I mean? I think we know.
And it's more than just them not knowing, especially in older like Black communities, religious communities. It's that everybody's grandson went to jail, was smoking that reefer, and so it's no good because that's the way that people think about it. And so it's really important to enlighten people to the fact that this was done on purpose.
Yeah. But do you know what happened?
The reefer, it was because they from the hood and they were Black or they were brown or they were
Listen
poor.
to what happened. Let's share a story real quick. Wendy, what did your grandmother say? Go back to the earth. I'm assuming, unless you were adopted, your grandmother was white, correct? She wasn't? She was Black? What was
She's Native American.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
but mainly white.
Lighter than Kibra's grandma, we'll call it. A lighter shade.
Grew up in a white community.
But Native nonetheless. I'm just saying, right?
But yeah.
Okay. Kibra, your grandmother, right? She was in the closet. You had to remember in your mind, think back in the day, what was grandma doing that work, right? What happened to their psyche? What happened to their mind? What happened to their people? The natives, right? What happened to them? It was not the plant that was bad. It was what happened to their kids that was bad.
The people,
it was the fear of what would happen. Just like right now, we'd rather just stay inside. It was for the fear of, right? So we need to take away that symbolism of where we're targeting the plant and target the policy that worked against the people, because there's just and then I'm just gonna go break some beans with grandma after this. I'm gonna get back to the roots real quick. I don't have a grandma, so I have to use
those policies get recycled, and that's why that's the thing too. I think the movement is everybody find out what your innate thing that you want to give is. Like I think you perfect. You were like, Laura, you educate, this person did this, and you were hitting on the main note that they came to give. And I think you find your main note and we're gonna look how we came here together and collectively we're gonna move. And I couldn't be a nurse like Kibra, I could be a nurse like you, but I know I can talk and I'm a great lawyer and I'm a great entrepreneur, so I can teach people how to keep their money. And that's why I talk about money all the time, and I talk about how these policies came to be to make sure the money was moved in a particular way, because that's the only way we can shift it back.
Yeah.
I think those are excellent points. And we could have a whole other panel on on solutions and things to do. So I think, and we've now been talking for a couple hours, ladies. That's
Wow.
crazy. So I would love to sit here all day and talk to all of you. So to leave on a high note, if each of you can just name
Leave on a high note.
when you feel the most down, what
In
is
2 hours.
one thing that makes you get back up? A piece of advice as a woman that you could give to people, and we'll end on that. And just so, Melissa, if you want to start, just one piece of advice when you are down in the dumps, what picks you back up?
Perspective picks me back up. Focusing on not my troubles, but my blessings and someone else's struggle helps me see the light a lot of the time. So I'm realizing where we've come from, how far we've gotten, and where I'm going helps me gain strength. Sometimes we get down on ourselves a lot of the time. So I'm with you. I'm done talking. I don't care. Perspective, baby, perspective.
That something that when you're down picks you up.
Well, a little bit of marijuana.
Yeah.
No, but gratitude. Like, I think back to, 6 years ago, I was in a job I hated. I was taking Xanax every day just to get through meetings with people I couldn't stand, talking about accounting, marketing. And I think back to just that frame of mind that I was in where I felt like I really had no purpose. I was showing up to work to help rich men get richer and help their rich white male clients get richer. And that there was a real hole in, like, what's my purpose? And I was 35. What's my purpose in life? But cannabis absolutely has given me a purpose. So when I think back, like, if I'm feeling down, I think back to those days where I was just like, why am I here? Now I know I am here because I've been empowered with some information, and I have a skill set and a network that I'm able to share it, and a platform that I've created to share it and hopefully change other people's lives too. So absolutely, it's gratitude and, like, just knowing I have some very powerful information in my brain, and when I put it in other people's brains, it can change their lives and change their communities. I've seen it.
Yes. Emily, something when you're down in the dumps, what empowers you to get back up?
I think for me, I've always taken things sort of day by day. I've been through a lot of emotional trauma in my life, and one thing that's helped me get through all of the things that I've been through is remembering that each day is a new day, and that you might feel down now, but the sun rises again, and tomorrow's a totally new day for you to do something different with your time. And I'm not always successful with that, but it is something that I tell myself every day, and it is something that really keeps me going.
Love it. Wendy, something that empowers you when you're feeling down in the dumps?
My responsibility. I have 3 children that I have to make into these people that are going to help the world when I'm gone. And they're going to have to help teach their children the same that I'm teaching them, and to make this world a better place. So, with great power comes great responsibility. Spider-Man all day long. Colton thinks that he is Spider-Man most of the time.
Yes.
But with this responsibility, with this power that we ended up having, that landed in our laps for whatever reason, we have to take great responsibility for that and pass it on with care and responsibility too. And I think that's what keeps me going, is that I am responsible for the health and the freedom of people in this plant, and that, and in perspective also. But it's just my responsibility to do this.
Lori, Big Mama, what gets you up after you're down?
What gets me up? It's a multitude of things. So physically, I move, I do martial arts, I'll meditate, I'll get myself to, like, really run. I try to run away from whatever it is. But it's really a concept of understanding that my intention is always going to manifest. And if there's anything that appears as if it's not going my way, it's literally moving me in the direction, redirecting me in the direction of what I really want. So it's about not judging what is as bad or good, as, like, really being detrimental to my goal, but really seeing it as a step. I may not know what direction, but I know ultimately it's going to bring me to what I want. And that's what sitting in that understanding of acceptance of all that is what really allows me to move past once I've exercised.
Yes, I love it. Kara, how do you get back up?
I want to share something that just happened. I don't know if you guys saw me like sort of alarmedly looking out my window, but this is some cannabis PTSD stuff. I just had like 5 police cars drive down my little cul-de-sac with their lights and their sirens blaring because it's someone's birthday.
Oh, and birthday kids. Worse.
Okay, sorry. The fact that all of my greatest friends and all of my greatest relationships in my life are absolutely directly tied to my time in the cannabis industry at this point. Like Emily is my best friend. She's family. My mother talks about her like she talks about me. Maggie, same thing. Like that. Like we're family. Like you people are my family. I don't know what I would do without the cannabis industry. I'd be like a sad, lonely person who lived, I don't know. This is the only thing I do know. I go to apply for a job and like, what'd you do before cannabis? And I'm like,
I don't know.
There was no before cannabis.
It doesn't matter. No.
Like these are my truly my friends and my family that I have built because of the cannabis space, because of prohibition, because of activism. And that is what gets me back up in the morning to do it again. I love you guys.
We love you.
Oh, we love you. Sorry. Kibra, how do you
let's
see down in the dumps?
Well, cannabis, shrooms is a new thing. And then
Girl, why aren't you calling me? We ain't friends.
Oh, I can't wait until we can get together
with the paper.
What?
I don't know. I think she said social distance microdose camping in your backyard or something. I'm not sure.
Oh, that sounds pretty cool. But honestly,
you're all invited.
Yeah.
I'm coming.
15 feet apart, of course.
Yeah. No, there's plenty. There's plenty of woods. We can all get our own tree.
Act like I'm playing right now.
But honestly, in addition to that, I have a lot of faith. I believe in God, and I just every day believe a few things, like that God loves me, and that like he wouldn't want me to suffer or be in a bad place long or be upset long. And so I know that he's gonna fix it. And then the other thing is that I have always believed with all my heart that I'm gonna be certain things, and my life is gonna be a certain way. And so I just believe that God is gonna make it right. So that's what always gets me back up. Like, okay, God wouldn't leave me like this. So I know it's about to be over.
Nice, beautiful. It was such an honor to be able to sit and talk with you all today. I am humbled every day by the work that you're all doing, and I would love to have another one of these calls with all of you, because I think there's so much more that we could talk about. But I want to thank MassCann for giving us a platform to discuss this. This organization is bigger than any little thing that we'd like to make it out to be, and the cannabis space wouldn't be here in Massachusetts without this organization. So I really, really want people to understand what this organization has done for this community and for everybody in it, and how important it is that this organization continues doing this work. It is anti-prohibition, and we are nowhere near ending prohibition, even though we have legalization. So you can become a member of MassCann. You can go on masscann.org. You can get a t-shirt. It's like $30. It's a good time. Support, what they're doing. I don't know if the Boston Freedom Rally is 100% on this year. Fingers crossed, third weekend in September. We will maybe get to socially distant gather on the common. Don't share joints or anything. But, if not, then there's definitely next year. And we'll be online until then. So thank you, everyone. Ladies, if there's any questions that were asked in the comments, if you would be so kind as to maybe go through them later. If any were directed at you, maybe you could answer them. So yeah, that's it. Thank you again. Thank you, MassCan, and have a wonderful day.
Bye. Thank you, MassCan and Maggie.
Bye, ladies.
Bye.
Bye.